concerned that we get a conclusive analysis. Together he went to
They're waiting for you, Gordon.
Procedures, everything will be fine.
I don't know how you can say that. Although I will admit that the possibility of a resonance cascade scenario is
You do not want he's
likely. I just don't feel
Gordon doesn't need to hear all this.
Alright, so yeah, we'll go over it. Too Mad apparently passed away today from a suspected drug overdose. I'm sure if you're familiar with Too Mad, you've probably seen the spiral that he's gone down over the last couple of years, drug-related. And it's been like a flood of things coming out about him post-mortem now, about like who he was behind the scenes and shit, with some really horrible things being alleged. So, I can't remember if I mentioned this at the start of his spiral or not, but he worked with our agency. Like, Matt and him communicated very frequently because we'd get him like ads for his videos and such. And there was like this switch that flipped. And I'm guessing it's when he started taking drugs, because he started to get really... He went down a really bad path, and he never recovered from it. So he would say some fucked up things. And he just, I guess, kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'd heard like things from other YouTubers about him, like in real life, and it was all really pretty horrifying stuff. But I didn't know the extent of it until like a ton of creators came out today to tell their experience with him. It's fucking awful. I don't know what the drug of choice was or whatever. I've seen a lot of people saying he was addicted to ketamine or something, but yeah, it was... whatever he found destroyed his mental state and created a monster, apparently. And today, he was found unresponsive from a supposed drug overdose. It's suspected that it was fent by professionals. I haven't seen the professionals say fent. I've seen some of like creators that he was close with saying it was ketamine. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Drugs are drugs, especially with the way he was handling them, are always going to end up in a situation like this. That is shit you just don't fuck with. That is a big don't do drugs moment for sure. And I know a lot of people tried to help him behind the scenes, but clearly it didn't get through. He needed like professional help, and I suppose never got it. You see James E's tweet? Yep, I did. And I saw a bunch of others come out with similar accounts of that kind of horrible stuff. There's a tier 1 kit membership, Kalari. It was a lot. It was more likely ketamine laced with fent, since there are DMs where he admits to the ketamine problem. That's what I was referring to, where I saw a lot of people mention that. Regardless, though, that is terrible stuff. not want to be messing with those things. I had a buddy of mine from college get hard addicted to ketamine. Dude still isn't right. But though I think he's also still addicted. It's not like he stopped and never recovered. He still actively partakes. That is a brutal one. Resub Supa. Why would you all sponsor a pedo loser like him? Also, Ket is for girls. Wow, there's a lot to unpack about that. So, Ket is for girls. Is the resub Supa. Why would you all sponsor a pedo loser like him? Also, Ket is for girls. Wow, there's a lot to unpack about that. It'd been a while since we worked with him because of the spiral he went down and the shit that came out. It's not like we were actively still working with him through all of that. He used to say a lot of terrible shit to, like, Matt. It was a spiral that started pretty much out of nowhere. So most likely drug related, and it completely destroyed him as a human being. Is it tier 1 Dennis? Helldivers 2 is great. I really enjoyed Helldivers 2. What about the accusations being made with no evidence? Obviously he's a bad guy, but they said that without proof and the lawsuit is void, so we're not including the evidence. I have no idea. Like I said, I learned about most of that the same way everyone else did through the Twitter posts. All I know is what we experienced, and also what some other people that I had heard of over the years had stated about their experience with him personally. The other stuff, obviously I have no idea. We'll have to wait and see on. There's a Prime Bull. I saw that too. I think that is a bad comparison to be making. Let's resub span and switch. I mean, I don't think this is some kind of meme stunt or anything. I don't think it would have been reported by the mainstream outlets if it hadn't been fully confirmed. For as dog shitty as TMZ is, they're usually thorough when it comes to these kind of articles about someone passing away. TMZ is usually like the first to know. All the time, somehow. There's a Prime Shadow. So I don't think it's like a joke or anything. There's a resub Duck. Last stream was on 8th of February, which was also the day he last tweeted. Most likely died after stream since he was playing Overwatch. His Discord still showed the game was open today. Yeah, I saw that as well. And no, I haven't heard of that before, Magic. TMZ's fucked up. They bribe doctors on people's deathbeds. Is that how they always get that kind of scoop? Not surprised. That sounds like TMZ. I'll look at that still. When did this news break? This afternoon. It was like 3 p.m. or something-ish. Somewhere in that general ballpark. No, I hadn't talked to him in quite a while. After the stuff he was saying, like, to Matt, it was very clear he was not the same person that I, like, played games with. back in like 2018, whenever that was, with like Rainbow Six. He had completely lost himself. So I hadn't talked to him in a while. He did message me like whenever TwitchCon was, seeing if I could give him a pass because he needed to do something there, which in retrospect to some of the things people were claiming is really kind of chilling. I didn't answer, but that was looking at like having that and then seeing what people were saying about what he was trying to do at TwitchCon is really, really weird now. Hey, it's that magical time again, where we have a nice little heart-to-heart and go over criticism that gets made about me. I've said this for a long time, but I think it's extremely important for people to be open to criticism and reading it, learning from it, and just being like a little sponge, taking it all in. I just feel it's an important part of development as a human being. Locking yourself in a bubble, just trapped in an echo chamber, I just think is bad. There's no real benefit to just only seeing meat slobbery other than just your own ego. So I always try to just see what people who don't like me are saying and like what all the criticism is. It's something I do every couple of years. I make a video on this subject, and I feel like it's crucial to becoming a stronger man. Puts some more hair on my chest and chisels out my jawline a bit further. So what ends up happening is I always get locked into these boxes and people's perspectives. And it's the reason why I only do this every couple of years, because those boxes subtly change over time. So when I first started doing these, the box that I was confined to was the React streamer, the reaction channel, the React Andy only YouTuber. Then it became the sex toy YouTuber and nothing else. And now the current anime arc that everyone says for me is that I'm the drama streamer slash YouTuber. Though that drama title also existed back then as well, but more as like the side character, side quest personality trait. Now it's become like the defining one in a lot of people's eyes, which I personally find to be a peculiar turn of events because drama used to be far more prevalent in my content and on my streams a few years ago than it is now. I used to be the instigator, the fucking catalyst in a lot of drama back then. I would be bringing poop to a piss fight pretty often. Nowadays, I'm usually going over wackier stories, but I do still, of course, cover quite a bit of drama. I've always had a fascination with it all the way back in 2016, so it's always been a pretty core part of things I cover. But it is odd to see that that's now like a label people give to me. But anyway, let's go ahead and start diving into these things a bit further. So if you're ever trying to feel bad about yourself, go on Reddit or Twitter. It's the most effective way of immediately feeling pretty shitty. So in the land of the narwhal baconing at midnight, there is no traction on any posts about me unless it's shitting on me, making things up about me, or just generally insulting me for a variety of things. So those are the posts that float to the top, and I see. So I've got kind of like the main bullet points for most of these posts, and I want to address them. Last time I did this kind of video, I did pull up some of the Reddit posts, but people accused me of trying to lead a hate brigade against the people that didn't like me, which of course I've never done ever, so I don't know why that accusation got tossed out, but I'm not trying to roll around here in the mud and give any kind of bad impression on what this video is supposed to be about, so I'm just going to give you the main points that get tossed around here. And by far, the biggest one is always my content used to be so full of passion and was generally better back before I showed my face. This is also criticism that has existed for about a decade now. Well, less than that, about 8 years now. And it's always a very big head scratcher for me because they used to say I put far more effort into my videos before the face reveal. Now, as I've always said, it's totally fine to not like me or you get tired of my content, get tired of me, whatever, throw me to the side, hey, you know, like that scene in Toy Story, I'm done playing with you. I get it. That's totally natural on the internet. But this criticism is one that I always am left with a question mark over my head. Because as I've stated multiple times, the content I used to make, the gameplay commentary videos, I shit these puppies out in less than 10 minutes. I was like Jimmy John's with a freaky fast delivery of content that I really didn't enjoy making all that much. Like, it was great escapism for me, but it became something that was more of like a mental strain sometimes. Because as I've stated, I was going through a lot during this period. So the example right there, the Halo Reach forklift, it's 5 minutes long. That's how long that whole video took me to make. Now, again, to reiterate this point, it's totally fine if you prefer that style of content from me back then, but it's objectively wrong to say that I was happier making that content or that I put more effort into that content than I currently do, because nowadays I put significantly more effort into the content I make. Even something as simple as making fun of some alpha male douchebag tutorial looks maxing video or something is much more time that I put into that than any gameplay commentary video I ever made. Again, all of those gameplay commentary videos, the runtime is actually how long I spent on them. So they are factually less effort than anything I've done recently. But again, I didn't enjoy that process either. I've stated multiple times that when I was making these gameplay commentary videos, I had this like mental checklist of things I needed to go through for these videos, so I would just spit out this stuff that I had already kind of knew I was going to say beforehand. So I would always spam the word nipples as much as possible because people liked when I said nipples. I would talk about cum as much as I possibly could fit into the video, and then I'd make sure to interject as many XD random sentences as my little noodle could cook up. So in that Halo Reach video, the quote that everyone really loved was, "Well, rub my nipples with sandpaper and beat my wiener with nitroglycerin. Somehow that bitch got me." And that's just randomness out the wazoo. Like, I'm basically holding up a spork while saying that. And that was the vibe of every gameplay commentary video, because I went into them with this pre-established checklist that I needed to tick all the boxes on. So another big one, you must be licking my nipples with the tongue of an elephant. Stuff like that. It's just random shit that I would say. There's nothing wrong with liking that. 100%, you're totally fine to still enjoy that, but it's not something that I'd like doing anymore. I don't script any of my shit. I feel like that actually takes a lot of the fun out of the process for me. I like not being able to go on the fly and get silly with things. And sometimes jokes work, sometimes they don't. But I just like that it's always a new experience. I'm not going in there like, okay, I need to mention nipples 5 times, I have to talk about titties and, coming titties too. Like, I didn't like that. So I don't miss making those kind of videos, but I know one of the main sentiments a lot of people echo is that they miss those kind of videos from me. And I'm sorry to tell you that I don't see myself going back to that. I really hated it. Like, I really grew to not enjoy that process. And it's actually why, if you've been around for a while, you'll know, after my lung collapsed for the 3rd time, I took like a 2 or 3 month break from YouTube. I heavily contemplated not coming back because it was such a strain to like have to force myself to say these things while playing these games because it's what people expected me to say. But I eventually did push through, and then my content changed, and I got happier, and I liked a different direction I was going. Like, I've been happier making content now than I ever have. Yet, a main criticism is people think that I'm more miserable now than I was back then, which, I don't know how to convince you. I can't take you inside and give you a little magic school bus tour of my brains and all the smiles inside of it when I'm making things. Now, the next major thing that people are often criticizing me for is abandoning React content, which is crazy because when I last made this video, people were attacking me for making React content, and now people are really nostalgic for it. The biggest post right now criticizing me is about how dog shit my streams are because I don't do React content anymore, and all the 100 or so comments are agreeing with them that, yeah, my only talent was reacting to videos, it was the only thing I was good at, now that that's gone, they had to unsub this and that. And I don't really understand why you're still in the subreddit if you've unsubbed and hate me. I don't really get the point of that, but I'm not your dad. You can spend your time however you want. But basically saying that now that the React content's gone, the streams suck. And then in other posts in the past, there was a lot of comments on posts like these saying that, yeah, now all he does is pump out low-effort slop. Which I think is an ironic thing to say on posts missing my React content, because even when I was doing React content, I was very open about how low effort that was. There is nothing more low effort than React content, period. And even the biggest reactors on the planet will agree with that sentiment, and yet for some reason they're saying that that was higher effort content and higher quality, which I think is a little weird. Even like the drama content I make, like the Niji Sanji video I made a few days ago, that was multiple hours worth of research to get all of the information and learn about it, so that's already more than any React video ever made. So I used to be big into reaction content. Most of my streams on Twitch for the longest time were just watching other people's videos and making jokes about them with the chat during it, and I would upload those to my channel from time to time. And I did that for quite a long time. And over the last year and a half, I completely stopped doing it. I really had my whole perspective changed on it with all of the discussion around this topic, and I I just didn't feel right doing it anymore. I didn't like the idea of taking other people's, like other YouTubers' content and just watching it in full on my channel, and then even re-uploading it, or uploading those highlights to my channel. It just rubbed me the wrong way, because I saw that there was a lot of YouTubers making very valid points against that practice, that it is basically stealing from them. And there's plenty of like outliers you can point to where a YouTuber or streamer is reacting to someone else's content and it actually helps that content creator grow. There's plenty of cases of that happening, but it's not the norm. Let me give you an example of something. I watched a masterpiece of a speedrun documentary on stream once about the history of the Hobbit speedrun. And I made 2 videos on this react. I broke it up into 2 parts because it was a really long video that I thought was just amazing. So I highlighted it into 2 parts. And the 2 videos I made from this react that were just highlighting the most hype moments got more views than the original work itself. And the creator that actually put in all the hard work, all the blood, sweat, and tears to craft this magnum opus, which is almost 3 hours long, almost as long as one of the fucking Lord of the Rings movies itself, didn't see much benefit. If you look at the social blade here, you'll find that when I uploaded these 2 reacts, which I was praising the shit out of this work and highly encouraging people to go show support to the creator, he only got 2.7k subs from that. And if you look at his monthly gained views, you'll see that the 2 big spikes came before I reacted to the video, and then many months after, when it found its way organically into the YouTube algorithm. My reacts had no noticeable effect on it, and may have even had a detrimental effect because it was clearly growing before I reacted to it. And that just does not seem fair to me. Now in this case, the creator of the video, Karma, was in the chat while I was watching it and seemed to really appreciate it and was having fun watching my reaction to it and everything. So like, it's not like I went behind their back and, you know, tried to steal the views away from them or anything. But even with permission, it's not like Karma saw a whole lot of upside to my react to it, other than, of course, just spreading word about this game that they love and the speedrun they love. But aside from that, their channel didn't really see a whole lot of benefit from it. And even still, it's just not really a fair transaction either. 90 to 95% of smaller content creators that have their work reacted to probably won't see any kind of benefit at all for it. Yes, their work got shared to more people, yippee yahoo, but that isn't always going to translate to success for them, or those eyes aren't going to go to them for the original most of the time because they were fans of the person that was reacting to it, and now they just got the entire video fed to them. So there's just plenty of arguments against it where you're just taking other people's hard work and you yourself are gaining from it, and the person who actually made that doesn't see as much of a return. So I stopped doing react content because I never want to have a negative effect on the community. So I'm not going to be going back to doing that. The only thing I react to now are trailers and news broadcasts, or occasionally if there's like some kind of big story that has a video associated with it, I'll watch pieces of it. But now when I'm talking about a video on stream, like for example something about Chicken's video following the kick predator and exposing all of that, I watched it beforehand, so I was knowledgeable on the topic, knowledgeable about the video, and I talked about the video on stream as opposed to just watching it on stream. And I just feel like that's better for discussion as well, because then you already have all of the information and you can have a deeper discussion to begin with. So even though people found that to be great content, it's not content that I was proud of, and it's not content that I'm missing by any means. But people are saying the streams have really had a downward decline in quality because of the absence of reacting. And it sucks to hear that. Like, that doesn't feel good, because I still really enjoy streaming. I don't do it as much now, but when I do it, I have a great time with it. And I really don't think the format of my streams have changed at all. I even went back to like the golden age of Moist Critical streams where I was a React Andy, you know, really fucking popping off. And it's still exactly the same format where I'm shooting the shit with chat most of the time, but instead of like watching another YouTuber's video on stream for a couple hours, I go through a variety of different stories that the chat is teaching me about, reading about them, learning about them in real time, or discussing a YouTuber's video that I've already watched in detail and encouraging people to watch the original. Like, it's still the same thing. The only thing that's different is I'm not watching that video and just taking the person's work and putting it on my stuff. So I don't think it's changed that much. Another thing that I saw on a Reddit post today is that someone said I'm just always on my phone while streaming. And that's a criticism that I'm just going to slap down because you are just making some shit up. My streams during 2020 through 2022, when I was still grinding my RuneScape, actually it was like 2019, 2022, but when I was still grinding my old school RuneScape account, fishing for max level, I was actively on my phone in every single stream grinding multiple skills. Let me just show you a clip of what a normal stream would look like. Lex government weapon. Alright, it's time. Holy fuck. Thank you, Nick. Sponsor iDubbbz for his boxing match. That's such a cute idea. Riveting stuff. I would do this for pretty much every stream during these grind sessions, where I was more preoccupied with maxing my RuneScape account, so I had my head buried in my phone, deeper than an ostrich buries its head in the sand during mating season, and I would just sit there fucking grinding, and then I'd throw on a YouTube video, I'd still just be like grinding on my phone, I'd miss some things from the video sometimes, so I'd have to rewind it. My head was in my phone so much more during that period than it ever has been since, and I don't know where this criticism came from, because I am barely on my phone now. The only time I go on my phone is if there's an occasional text message that I forgot to respond to, or if someone messaged me about something important. I'm barely on my phone, so I don't know where that critique is coming from. That one is just wrong. I'm going to tell you you're wrong for that one. Now, I feel like I need to keep reiterating this here because maybe I'm starting to sound like combative or something, and that is just not what I'm aiming to do here at all. It's totally fine to not be enjoying my recent content or recent streams or something. Tastes change. I get it. At some point, you know, you stop enjoying certain things. It's totally natural and totally understandable. I'm not upset about it. Like, sometimes reading the things hurts, but I get it at the end of the day. And there's nothing wrong with criticism, which is why I go out of my way to read the criticism and talk about it. And I'm just giving it my perspective here on all of this. So, for example, another thing that comes up is people are tired of me doing so much, like, coverage of things during streams or hanging out with chat as opposed to gaming as much. Now, I do think I haven't done as much gaming as I used to, because I used to do more, like, long-term shitty gaming, like where I'd play a shitty game for longer than I currently do. Nowadays, when I do a bad game night, I'll usually just play like half of a game, or sometimes not even half of a game, whereas back then, I used to just fucking full steam ahead finish those games that I wasn't interested in, force myself to. And I just felt like that didn't make for good content, so a game I didn't like that I was forcing myself to finish, I thought would probably be a big turnoff for a lot of viewers, like they weren't enjoying it. So I stopped doing that over the last year, where if there was a game that I either lost interest in or just didn't feel like finishing, I wouldn't force myself to. Though the consequence of that became even games that I liked playing, such as Armored Core 6, I never finished on stream. I started playing games more off-stream last year and even into this year than I ever did in the past. I talked about this years ago, but I completely stopped playing games on my own because I just elected to do them on stream with others. I went back to playing games on my own, like Alan Wake 2, and people didn't like that. So I started Alan Wake 2 on stream, the stream crashed, and then I ended up getting COVID, so I watched Alan Wake 2 on my own, and then when I got better from COVID, I played it on my own. I didn't stream it. Same with Spider-Man 2, played it on my own. So I do admit there was a lot of games I didn't play on stream to completion that I would have liked to, and I do understand that people probably want more of like completing games. So I've been doing that in 2024. I completed Suicide Squad on stream. If that doesn't showcase my perseverance and resilience, I don't know what does. I have been doing a lot more gaming in 2024 than in 2023, and I am finishing the games again, because I know people like to experience it with others as well, so I'm going to work on doing more of that again. But that's a totally fair criticism, that I haven't been gaming as much. On stream, that is. So I've been making sure to get back into the swing of doing most of my gaming while being live on stream. So you can expect more of that, and definitely more bad games, because those are always super fun. There's just been like a flood of games coming out, and a lot of them have been bad recently, so we've been getting pseudo-bad game nights recently too. But anyway, I think that is something that I need to actively work on and have been. So now let's go into another criticism I see a lot of. When I'm streaming, I'm always reading the chat, so I'm always talking with people in chat, unless I'm playing a game, then I'm usually focused on the game and not interacting as much. But for the most part, I'm shooting the shit, so I'm seeing a lot of things. And it's Twitch chat and YouTube chat. You're going to see some profoundly stupid statements. And oftentimes, I joke about those things. It's never really coming from a place of malice, unless of course the statement I see and call out, oh, you're shooting the shit, so I'm seeing a lot of things. And it's Twitch chat and YouTube chat, so you're going to see some profoundly stupid statements. And oftentimes, I joke about those things. It's never really coming from a place of malice, unless of course the statement I see and call out is like a blatantly awful one or racist or something really terrible. Then I will get mean because that deserves to be slapped down. That is some bad shit, and I will call that out from time to time. But when it's just something like weird or a bit odd, I'll joke back with the person, and I feel like a lot of times people are thinking that I'm being nasty to them when that's not really what I'm trying to do. And maybe that's on me, maybe it's my fault for not making it clear enough, but when someone says something like, "Hey asshole, when are you gonna play Helldivers 2? You promised you'd play it," and I'm literally playing it in the stream that they post that message in, I'll usually say something back like, "When are you going to open your eyes?" or something. Like, I'll joke to them about it, but I'm not trying to be like nasty about it or anything. I'm just saying something silly back. Like, it's not trying to make an argument with the person out of it. And I feel like that might just get misconstrued somewhere along the way with viewers watching. So it's something I probably need to be more mindful of, I guess. I'm never trying to make it like aggressive as a response. Or especially when we get into our heated alien debate, when we start fucking talking about warp drives, and I start getting real animated about warp drives and fucking the WoW signal. I'm never trying to be mean to people talking about it. I am just getting passionate and silly with them. I guess that's just getting lost in translation somewhere along the way. So it's something that maybe I need to recognize more of, because people seem to think that I'm being mean to viewers, or I'm just a really grumpy old man. Another thing I see pop up a lot is how lazy I've become, where I post stream highlights now more often than I used to, which again I think is factually wrong, because if you remember the old React Charlie era, almost every video I'd post every day was a React video from stream the previous night. Like, I'd be posting 2 or 3 sometimes in a day that were all just stream highlight React moments. Now, I do still post stream highlights, of course, especially when it comes to like gaming related stuff. And sometimes I'll use some stream highlights in content. Like, for example, the situation with the cop and the falling acorn yesterday. I spliced in like a minute's worth of stream highlights, and that was a topic I learned about on stream and talked about further in that video. And I do still post like entire videos that are composed of stream highlights if I thought the topic was really interesting or if something was going on. But I do significantly less of that now than I used to, and it's really not even close. I feel like most people don't remember how much my content was just stream reposts a couple years ago. I really feel like I do more variety of content now than ever before, and I certainly put in significantly more effort into my content than ever before. It's just that big stuff, the really passionate, really expensive, and really like hands-on, a lot of work content is not the content that gets people views. Like the MWL, our Moist Wrestling League. That takes months worth of planning, it's very expensive, and the views on that is significantly less than pretty much anything else I make. Which isn't the biggest deal to us because it's fun. I love doing it, so I have no plans on stopping it anytime soon, but a lot of people aren't seeing it, thus they're not getting exposed to this wide variety of content I produce. And even outside of that, like the Dungeons & Dragons show, Skill Check show, that is another massive time investment, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of passion behind that. It even has its own YouTube channel now. Music videos, again, another thing that I'm super passionate about, have been for a long time, but again, the views on that, much lower than anything else, so most people aren't seeing it. Even just like simple one-off videos like learning to dance, like where we brought out a dance instructor and we spent a few hours trying to master shuffling, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time, not super popular. So a lot of these things, this wide variety of content that I produce, isn't the ones that are popping off. So people aren't seeing it, thus they keep thinking that I'm only doing either stream highlights or drama because that's all they're being exposed to, or that's all they're choosing to click on. Which isn't, you know, again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but yes, it does make me a little upset that people are saying that I'm only this one type of content creator, when really, I'm really proud about the wide variety of things that I make, because I love doing that. Like, I have 2 comic book series, Godslap and Plague Seeker. Godslap might be getting a theatrical feature film within the next couple years. I can't blow the lid off that too big here, but just been cooking up so many massive projects. There's another huge project that I'm going to be revealing to all of you pretty soon that I'm super excited about. Like, there's just, I really feel like this wide variety of content I produce is
full of tracking devices.
it makes it so nothing's ever just like a one track on this channel, where it's not just like one type of thing. It's not just always gaming. It's not just always news. It's not just always drama. Like, you never really know what to expect, and I think that makes it really fun. I love doing that. Just constantly keeping things fresh, like tier lists, really weird one-off things where we're trying olive oil ice cream, which is a downright scam. Just all kinds of different shit. So it does hurt when people say, like, Charlie's only a drama content creator, or a couple years ago, all Charlie does is play with sex toys for videos or whatever. It doesn't feel good. Like, I'm not going to pretend. Like, yeah, I wish more people knew about the large variety of things I do, so I wouldn't just get, like, a label slapped on me for something like that. But I get it. Like, I can't be mad about it or anything. Like, I do understand. So it's not like an incorrect criticism or something. Again, this whole video is just talking about these things from my perspective. And just listening to all the feedback and taking it in, thinking about it. I think it's very important for anybody, really. So yeah, I think this is all of the main criticisms that I've seen. I don't think there's anything I missed. But yeah, anyway, that's about it. So yeah.
Morphine ammunition depleted. Minor fracture detected.
Madam Web is a movie a lot of people wrote off pretty quickly. The trailers are abominable. Let's not, you know, beat around the bush here. And the press tour that Dakota Johnson went on, who was the lead for this film, was a real head scratcher because she just openly seemed to despise the film with the way she talked about it. One of her interviews, she's like, yeah, I don't even know if the movie's good. And spoiler alert, turns out it wasn't. So maybe she really can see the future, because she knew this one was a super stinker. This movie is a straight up clunker. And this film was produced by some of the best in the business, Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. Those might not be household names, but I promise you're familiar with their work. Their resume is nothing but heaters. Dracula Untold, Last Witch Hunter, Gods of Egypt, Power Rangers, Morbius, and Madam Web. They are, without any exaggeration, undoubtedly the Kobe Bryant and Shaq of producing dog shit movies. They only write horrible garbage, and somehow they keep getting worse. Now, I wouldn't say this film is worse than Morbius, but I would say it's just as bad. It's not better, it is just exactly the same as Morbius in terms of how dog shitty it is. So it's really impressive that throughout this decade of Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless working in Hollywood, they have somehow found
A federal judge has ordered the release.
Madam Web is
Do you believe that this was preventable?
Absolutely. This was predictable and preventable. And the only reason to be able to predict something is to prevent it and take a preeminent strike against it. And that preeminent strike shouldn't have to always be in the courts. It should be healing. And that's what we saw. We did family meetings with she and her mother to try find the place of healing, find the place of moving forward, sake of the child. I did reach out to, at one point, to Joel Osteen's church, asking for help for her mother and for intervention. As I would expect anyone to reach out to me if one of my congregants was in a situation that needed my intervention. And that's what I needed from him. I needed their team, and I don't know what they did. I don't know if they were able to. And I think the tremendous guilt that any grandparent or parent feels where they haven't been able to protect the child from something so horrific has to be set aside when you're in the room with the child, so that all they feel is the hopefulness and the moving forward, that we're going to live life going out the front window, not in the rearview mirror.
Just from that was the former mother-in-law of the woman accused of opening fire at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church, talking to ABC News, saying that she thinks the shooting was, quote, predictable and preventable. Wally Carranza, who identified
live life is the hopefulness and the moving forward, that we're going to live life going out the front window, not in the rearview mirror.
Just from that was the former mother-in-law of the woman accused of opening fire at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church, talking to ABC News, saying that she thinks the shooting was, quote, predictable and preventable. Wally Carranza, who identifies herself on Facebook as a rabbi, opened up about her former daughter-in-law, Janice Moreno's mental health issues and noted, despite the fact she had schizophrenia, she was allowed to own guns. That's an important thing to remember. That's one of several very important facts that get to the heart of why conservatives, particularly libs of TikTok, is running in the opposite direction with this story. As we talked about in that previous article, the article mentions from her family a history of mental health issues. As we'll see here, from CNN, shooter at Houston megachurch had lengthy criminal history, including weapons charges, police say. Not only is the history of psychiatric issues very important to this story, the other thing that's very important is a long history of criminal charges that include fraud, which, as we will see, because this shooter went under aliases for fraud that included male names, as soon as the story broke, places like Libs of TikTok and Fox News and Tim Pool ran with the story as another case of a transgender shooter shooting up a Christian church. CNN, a woman who walked into a popular Texas megachurch Sunday afternoon with a long gun and her 7-year-old son opened fire before she was killed by law enforcement officers on scene. The gunfire left the child in critical condition and another man injured, officials said. Should be noted, since it said the gunfire left the child in critical condition, that leads me to believe the child was shot in the head by police officers. That is what I gather from the way this is phrased in the way they usually report on police shootings. Authorities are now probing the shooting at televangelist and Pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church, roughly 6 miles from downtown Houston. The woman, identified in search warrant as Genesee Yvonne Moreno, 36, entered the church shortly before 2 p.m. wearing a trench coat and backpack and opened fire, Houston Police Chief Troy Fender said in Sunday afternoon news conference. Officers, quote, shot and killed her in self-defense after she pointed her weapon at them, according to the search warrant released Monday by the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. Her son was shot in the head during the shooting and remains in the hospital Monday in critical condition. Yes, that is the officer-involved shooting voice in full effect here. The officers shot the child. It sounds like. It's unclear who fired the shot that injured the child. CNN has reached out to the police for more information. I am going to go on a limb and say if the dead shooter had shot the child and there were witnesses to that, the police would have come out with that angle to the story. The police have released all of this information except who shot the child, which is mad sus. I believe the police. From what we know about how police report their own shootings and how news runs with that and runs interference for that, I'm saying police shot the child. That is my reading of it. I would be more than happy to be proven wrong. The shooting is just the latest instance of gun violence disrupting American life at places once considered safe. This was once a place of worship. Others have been at schools, grocery stores, outlet malls, hospitals, college campuses, and house parties, which, again, for those not in America, that is a normal thing to hear. Like 4 dead, 6 dead, 10 dead at shopping mall, church, grocery store is shit I've been hearing literally my entire life, and it has only gotten worse. Another problem that is not being talked about. We'll get to the ones that are. Shooter used a legally purchased AR-15 with a Palestine sticker on it, police said. A federal law enforcement source previously told CNN Free Palestine was found a gun. She had a .22 caliber weapon in her bag, which was not used in the attack, according to a federal law enforcement source. And here is really the crux of the story. The linchpin that every conservative commentator did not wait for. And here's where you get into a lot of people like Tim Pool and Chaya Rychik from Libs of TikTok. They fancy themselves as these they fashion themselves really as these citizen journalists. Like they think they are delivering journalism and doing a journalism outside of the mainstream, so you're not getting the mainstream bias and press, which might be true. You're also not getting the professionalism, journalistic ethics, intelligence of people who have been doing this kind of thing for a long time, and probably most importantly in this case, know when information has been verified and when information hasn't, especially in a breaking story. The difference between somebody like Libs of TikTok and a breaking news story is, generally speaking, and this isn't always true, generally speaking, Libs of TikTok wants to get the story out as quick as possible, because the more clout she gets off of that, the more that post can spread, that's good for her. That's her business. Like, we'll go and look through Chaya's, the Libs of TikTok feed here in a second. She only posts. Like, that's what she does all day, as we will see. Portrait of a single mother with a history of mental health challenges, going through the ups and downs of trying to turn her life around and launch a business. During a Monday news conference, Houston Homicide Commander Christopher Hassig said the shooter used multiple aliases, including both male and female names. Moreno was put under an order for emotional detention in 2016, and she had a mental health history documented by Houston police, Hassig said. Records from the Texas Department of Safety show Moreno had a string of arrests for minor offenses over the last 2 decades, including possession of marijuana, an assault, illegal possession of a weapon, resisting arrest, and a forgery charge. But in her 30s, she described herself on social media as the founder of a real estate and financial services firm. By her own account on social media pages, she is involved in sales of everything from new condos to shopping malls. A social media post in March 2020 shows a screenshot of a form letter from Lakewood Church thanking Moreno for her donation. Like at this point, she had already had a history of mental health issues documented by the state. And nobody did anything for the person. Nobody looked at her history and said, this person needs actual help. They're not going to be cured by a 2-day stay in prison. They're not going to be aided by Texas's ridiculously lax gun laws that I'm assuming is how she was able to go out and get an AR-15. I'm pretty sure it was an AR-15. Yeah, AR-15. Legally purchased AR-15 for somebody with a criminal history and a long history of mental health issues. According to police, there was some sort of family dispute between the shooter and her ex-husband and ex-husband's family, some of whom are Jewish. This might possibly be where all this stems from, and this is apocryphal from the police. Said police also found anti-Semitic writings connected with the shooter. Maybe there's a connection to the Palestine sticker, anti-Semitic writings, like that might be a hint. But thus far, it's not, this doesn't seem like an issue with trans people, right? You'd be surprised, according to Libs of TikTok and Chaya Rychik, who, by the way, these are still up. These posts that she posted are still up. Breaking. This is from yesterday. No, this is from 2 days ago in the morning. 2 days. 2 days of people telling her that this information isn't accurate, that it's not verified, that it's not correct. Other news sources going back and rectifying and correcting themselves. Fox News did it. They did it very quietly. But Libs of TikTok still has up. Breaking. The Lakewood shooter was transgender. He went by the name Janess and previously Jeffrey. Another act of trans terrorism. We need to have a national conversation about the LGBTQ movement turning youth into violent extremists. A couple things there. One, she wasn't a youth. Two, we already talked about, again, this is where, for Chaya, not having any scruples, not having any experience or reliability as a journalist, kind of is making her look like an idiot to anybody who does observe those things. And let's go to the Independent, and then we'll look at the Advocate really quick, because what we're going to do is I want to go into showing how, from libs of TikTok, this spread throughout the conservative sphere, many of whom have not recanted at all any of the things they've said. Because for so many conservatives in this space, it's about getting a take out there that will take off and get spread and get them more followers and get them more subscribers and just essentially do it to get more money. They don't care if it's actually wrong. And when it's pointed out to them, again, because they don't have journalistic principles or training, they don't go through any effort to edit or change it. They just leave it there for others to latch onto later. Conservative pundits, activists, and politicians have continued to spread the unfounded claim that the Lakewood church shooter was a transgender woman, even after it was kiboshed by police. Again, this was based on libs of TikTok. Her rationale was previously used aliases that were part of fraud. That's where all of this comes from.
30%.
Houston police said in a press conference on Monday that although Moreno had sometimes gone by alias Jeffrey Escalante, their investigations so far have found no evidence she ever identified as any gender other than female. But that did not stop conservative crusader Chris Rufo, anti-LGBT activist anti-LGBT activist Shia Reichik, Donald Trump Jr., and even Texas Senator Ted Cruz from latching onto the idea. Quote, per capita, violent trans extremists have to become the most violent group of people anywhere in the world. That is a terrible sentence. Have to have become the most violent group of people anywhere in the world, said John Jr. on X, formerly Twitter. Mrs. Reichik, who runs the Lib of TikTok account on X, has continued to call Morena a, quote, trans terrorist without offering any evidence, even as she posted clips of other portions of Monday's press conference. So she is cutting around that press conference. On Tuesday afternoon, nearly 12 hours after that briefing debunked the claims, Ted Cruz shared one of Ms. Reichik's posts with an emoji of a man covering his face with one hand. The claim appears to have originated from the left-leaning broadcaster MSNBC, which claimed on Monday morning before the press conference that Morena was a Hispanic transgender woman. Because of this, Fox News followed that up with a headline. Both outlets have now nixed that claim. Ari Drennan, head of LGBT plus news for the left-wing think tank Media Matters for America, who first noted the NBC News connection, said Ms. Reichik and company were, quote, adding fuel to a moral panic as legislators across the country push a raft of laws restricting the lives of trans people. And Ari, I couldn't have put it better myself, because that is, without a doubt, Chaya's end goal, as we'll see. Because we're going to get into not just how it's spread, but also why she keeps doing this. This isn't the first time she's done this. Amid increasing paranoia and violent rhetoric targeting trans people, right-wing activists and influencers has seized on a number of recent shootings in which the alleged perpetrators appear to be trans and non-binary as evidence that the trans community is uniquely violent. The modern trans movement is radicalizing activists into terrorists, wrote Benny Johnson, a conservative YouTuber previously fired from BuzzFeed for plagiarism. Oh, that's shady. I love that. Independent, after the 2023 Nashville shooting. This is happening a lot. Something is deeply wrong, said Elon Musk, noted dipshit and richest person in the world and owner of X, who's become increasingly critical of trans rights since his own child transitioned. Data does not, data does not support the idea that trans people commit more mass shootings than others, according to a Reuters analysis last year. There have been just 4 shootings recently where there was clear evidence that a perpetrator was transgender or considering transition: in Aberdeen, Maryland in 2018, in Denver, Colorado in 2019, in Nashville, Tennessee in 2023, and in Iowa in January 2024. The 2022 Colorado Springs shooting at an LGBT nightclub has also been listed by conservatives because the shooter, Anderson Lee Aldrich, has said since their arrest they identify as non-binary. However, prosecutors have said there is zero evidence that they identified that way before the shooting, and found they actually exhibited extreme hatred for LGBT plus people, and we've talked about that. That's just extreme trolling. Like he's already in prison, he's already going to jail forever. What does he have to lose by causing more issues for queer people? In any case, the Gun Violence Archive lists more than 44,000 mass shootings in the US since 2013. Some of them had more than one perpetrator. Of those, less than 10 were known to be transgender as of last March, representing 0.11% of the whole. That's 0.11%. So let's go over to the Advocate. Fox News and GOP politicians falsely claim Lakewood shooter was trans. Quote, our shooter is identified by driver's license as Genesee Moreno, 36-year-old Hispanic female, Hassick said. She has utilized both male and female names, but through all of our investigation to this point, she has identified this entire time as female. Fano later clarified, quote, it's the biological mother, referring to the critically injured 7-year-old boy who was shot in the head. The incident has been a magnet for misinformation, notably propagated by far-right figures on social media. U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia, contributed to the confusion with the post on X, making unfounded claims about the shooter's identity and motivations. Quote, not only was the shooter a trans from El Salvador, she also had a gun engraved with Free Palestine, but investigators can't say if she was politically motivated or not. When this country starts being truthful, regardless if whose feelings get hurt, we will solve many problems, which is a hysterical thing to say about telling the truth and solving problems, when this is somebody who was basically just completely underserved by our mental health care in America. Like, the truth, if you want to go into the truth behind this, it's that this is somebody who shouldn't have had as easy access to guns as Texas wants for everybody. Like, this is somebody who should have had dedicated mental health care given her. Because she had a history, a criminal record that indicated she needed health care. Like, that's the truth. Has nothing to do with being trans or hurting other people's feelings. However, it's very funny that she wants to say, oh, a trans illegal immigrant who loves Palestine, we gotta be able to stand up to these people. Republican Missouri Senators Josh Hawley also perpetuated the falsehood that the shooter was trans. So the Lakewood shooter was a transgender, pro-Palestine radical. We need a full hate crimes investigation, including the influences on the shooter's motivation, plans, and thinking, he wrote. Again, very funny. They won't look into just like the fact that she's able to just buy guns so easily. Like that never comes into the equation here. Like, and only when they're sure, because it's a trans person, that it has to be a radical leftist. That's the only time they'll really, you notice that. Let's look into their motivations. Let's look into their inspirations. If it's somebody who has like a manifesto about, you know, white replacement theory, you know, thoughts and prayers. Better not look into it too much. Because now we've seen how it's spread. We've seen since Libs of TikTok. And Libs of TikTok, like, this is a massive account. This is probably one of the biggest accounts on X. 2.8 million subscribers. Or followers. 2.8 million followers. It is followed by Donald Trump Jr., Marjorie Taylor Greene, Elon Musk, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley. All people, all super prominent figures in current right-wing movements. All people who retweeted or shared this story. This interpretation of it. So what does that do to a narrative? All we really have to do to find out is go down into the comments. Because do you think, like honestly, do you think the people in this comment section are going to go and look for any mainstream news sources? Are they going to go to MSNBC? Are they going to go to Fox News to try and find something that might dispel their narrative or challenge it or add additional context? Or do you think that they look at something like this and see all the facts they need? I'm betting it's the former. If there's a manifesto for this one, it won't be released because it would contain everything you expect it to, just like in Nashville. We talked about how the Nashville shooters' writings were just like absolutely incoherent, and also how the narrative around that shooter completely changed. I have a video stream highlights up on it, how Steven Crowder and Matt Walsh totally changed their tune once the manifesto actually came out from what they said at the beginning. Why is his race white? Again, they're misgendering somebody who's not transgender. They're just misgendering a system. Why do we keep letting people out of prison with super long rent? Ooh, you're so close to getting it. They were told being transgender, their life will be full of happiness and they will see all their dreams come true. The conspiracy theory that has alerted our world. Controversial group behind Trans Day of Vengeance raised money for firearms training as other trans protesters posed with guns for the march in DC on Saturday. Well, we have the limit. Okay. I don't see people fear-mongering when it's militias doing this shit. When it's just good old boys dressing up in camo and being weekend warriors.
Oh, that'll get your heart pumping.
Ads for PragerU. God, this place sucks. Okay, and here we see. Remember we were talking about Colorado Springs identified as non-binary? Liar. Uvalde shooter identified as trans. I don't think that's correct at all. I think that's just a literal lie. Yeah, here we go, yeah. Trans woman's photo used to spread baseless online theory about Texas shooter. So this was this was a couple years ago now, 2022. But again, do you see any pushback here? Aside from trans activists, trans people, you don't see anybody trying to correct these narratives. Another gender-confused person. They are dangerous individuals. They belong in a mental home. 97 likes. That is really the mindset that Chaya Raichik wants to push. I've seen news reports calling it a biological female. Very confusing. Not really, you're just being lied to. How is that thing considered a white, non-Hispanic female? Notice, this is a cis woman that these people have been told is trans, so they immediately dehumanize her. A dead woman. They call it a thing, an it, because that's what they think is okay. That is the kind of rhetoric that Chaya pushes. And this is where the shit really spreads. Because it's one thing to look at and we could go into a dozen comment sections that are going to be just like this, full of hundreds of comments just like this. Because these people are looking for confirmation bias. And Chaya is giving it to them. Here, this is, Elena, I forget her last name off the top of my head. McLaughlin? She follows me. Either way, this is straight up fake. This is not from a trans person. All of this that was written, fake. It's just somebody else's picture. And, again, we have over in the comments, people who believe it wholeheartedly, without even batting an eye. I am armed whenever I leave the house. That's nothing bad will happen there. Introduce this again, like people, it's like they see something. First off, this is ridiculously weird. Christ cut. Slam dunk a Christ cut baby into the trash can. Like, it's clearly a troll, and yet still, they are arguing like it's a serious thing. And again, we saw this. This is, at least half of them are not true. The list keeps growing. Oh, how trolls gay. Great. Support every illegal alien. Great. Wokeness has made people mentally sick. The 1776 paragraph. So it goes like this forever. Like it just keeps going and it keeps spreading. She wants violent sentiment against trans people. And you can tell because multiple times she has had people tell her, ask her, interview her, saying, hey, people call you a stochastic terrorist because after you point stuff out, after you target people online, those people get death threats, bomb threats, doxxed, have to move, get stalked. Do you think you might want to stop it all? To which she basically, like, shirks all blame and any responsibility. And says, well, I'm just holding up a mirror to the degenerate liberal leftists. And they don't like that. Like, okay, but you're not answering the question. First off, you're not really holding up a mirror. You're just retweeting their videos and stuff that are already publicly available. And most importantly, you never seem to, Chaya, try and dissuade people from notions of violence. The people in your comments saying I never, like, we all need to get armed. The people in your comments saying every trans person is a degenerate with a mental disease. Even when it's a lie. Because that is her grift. That is what she wants to happen. From NBC News, after Libs of TikTok posted, at least 21 bomb threats followed. The FBI and local law enforcement said bomb threats across the country have tied up government resources even when they turn out to be hoaxes. February 7th, 2024. That's this year. And as I've talked about in previous videos, this is not the first incident of Chaya pointing something out, and it ends with bomb threats. Last March, police in Coralville, Iowa, investigated a bomb threat targeting a junior high school. Authorities brought in specially trained dogs to sniff for explosives and started looking into why someone might try to target the community's teachers and students. Law enforcement quickly determined that the threat was a hoax. Detective Hannah Dvorak from the Coralville Police Department arrived at a theory. Quote, it appears this all stems from a post made earlier this week by Chaya Rychik and her Libs of TikTok account, Dvorak wrote in a report to her superiors. Rychik, 29, is not accused of making any bomb threats in Iowa or anywhere else. But about a day and a half before authorities responded to the threat, Rychik posted that the school offers a, quote, pornographic book in its library that, quote, teaches kids about gay sex. These are the books they're giving your kids to read in school, she wrote on the social media platform X. People have frequently targeted the book and questioned this book is gay, a coming out guide for LGBTQ teens, with book bans going back years. The Coralville detective wrote in a report that one of Rychik's supporters could have had a role in the bomb threat. And here's really where it all spreads from, because there is no end to people who are brought up on charges, who are they are investigated and it is found they have direct ties to supporting Libs of TikTok, to being inspired by Chaya Rychik. Threatening shootings, threatening bombs against schools, hospitals, doctors, activists. The list goes on. As we'll see here, Coralville was not alone. Going back to the NBC News article, officers and government officials in 4 other jurisdictions, Burbank, California, Minnetonka, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Tualatin, Oregon, told NBC News they believe Rychik sparked threats in their localities with her posts on social media that digitally heckle people such as drag performers, LGBTQ teachers, and doctors who treat transgender patients. The name Libs of TikTok is a reference to the people Rychik mocks on social media, Libs being short for liberal. NBC News identified 33 incidences. Gee, what's that? That's not a word. NBC News identified 33 instances starting in November 2020 when people or institutions singled out by Libs of TikTok later reported bomb threats or other violent intimidation. The threats, which on average came several days after tweets from Libs of TikTok, targeted schools, libraries, hospitals, small businesses, and elected officials in 16 states, Washington, D.C., and the Canadian province of Ontario. 21 of the 33 threats were bomb threats, which most commonly targeted schools and remained via email. While I think a lot of people would take the opportunity to try and set the record straight or run interference or something, Chaya knows she doesn't need to. Like, that's one of the more insidious things about the schism that has been brought about by distrusting fake news, by distrusting mainstream news journalism, is that she knows that she doesn't have anything to gain by trying to clear her name to a wider audience. Because as we were seeing earlier, she already has a built-in audience of people who are ready to hate trans people, who are ready to dehumanize them at a moment's notice, who are going to be there to support her and spread her conspiracies. Back to the article, she did not respond directly, but said in a post on X that NBC News was working on a, quote, hit piece. Quote, they do it to try to paint me as an extremist to discredit me. This bomb threat narrative is really getting old, she wrote, adding a yawning face emoji. Do you think... Like, I can't tell if she seriously has no, like, internal monologue. Like, I doubt she has what most people would call a conscience that makes her stop and like, God, was what I'm doing actually a good thing? I don't think she has that. I think she's too blinded by the limited, because here's the other thing. Let's go back into, let's go back into a little bit. We'll go into Chaya Rychik's history in a second, because if you don't know, Chaya Rychik has been desperate for a spotlight. Desperate to do something that requires her to not actually work a job for her entire adult life. An account in search of a voice. A big break from Joe Rogan. This is from Taylor Lorenz, Washington Post writer. Chaya Reichik had been working as a real estate salesperson in Brooklyn when, in early November 2020, she created an account that would eventually become Libs of TikTok. Under her first channel, Chaya, bunch of numbers, she minimized COVID, cast doubt on election results, and promoted a dubious story about a child sex trafficking. On November 23rd, 2020, Reichik changed handles, this time going by Chaya Reg, and identifying herself publicly as a real estate investor in Brooklyn. She began doubling down on election fraud conspiracy using QAnon-related language. Earlier that December, she joked about launching a clothing line titled "Voter Fraud is Real." Later that month, Reichik cycled through 2 more Twitter names, this time focusing on state politicians. First under the handle Chaya Reichik and the display name Chaya Reichik, and then under the new handle Cuomo Must Go. She railed against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, calling for him to resign. She promoted the effort to recall Governor Gavin Newsom. She also began posting about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, calling him, quote, actually brilliant, which is very funny. By early last March, she pivoted to a parody account titled Houseplant POTUS, pretending to tweet as if she was a houseplant living with President Biden. She revamped her avatar to look like a small shrub with Biden's face on the leaves. At that point in time, she also claimed to be proudly Orthodox Jewish, live in Brooklyn, and work in real estate in her Twitter bio. So here we already see she has been taken in by the right-wing content sphere and is desperate to get some of that clout for shilling almost anything. And when it doesn't work out, she just pivots to something else. She just pivots to another gimmick account of some shape.
Guess not.
Whether it's a politician that's popular or unpopular at the time, whether it's a dumbass gimmick account from the Washington Post article, but the houseplant parody never took off. On April 19, 2021, she pivoted her account once again, this time to Libs of TikTok. Just 4 months after getting started, TikTok got its big break. Joe Rogan started promoting the account to millions of listeners in his hit podcast. He mentioned it several times on the show in August, then again in late September. Libs of TikTok is one of the greatest fucking accounts of all time, he said. With the seal of approval, Reichik's following skyrocketed. By January, Reichik's page was leaning hard into groomer discourse, calling for any teacher who comes out as gay to be fired on the spot. Her anti-trans tweets went especially viral. She called on her followers to contract schools that were allowing, quote, boys in the girls' bathroom, and pushed the false conspiracy theory that schools were installing litter boxes. That being gender non-conforming or an ally to LGBTQ plus community is a, quote, mental illness, and referred to schools as, quote, government-run indoctrination camps for the LGBTQ plus community. By March, Libs of TikTok was directly impacting legislation. DeSantis' press secretary, Christina Pashaw, credited the account with, quote, opening her eyes and informing her views on the state's restrictive legislation that bans discussion of sexuality or gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade, referred to by critics as the Don't Say Gay bill. She and Libs of TikTok have interacted with each other at least 138 times publicly, according to a report by Media Matters. When asked by the Post about her relationship with the account, Pashaw wrote, quote, I follow, like, and retweet Libs of TikTok. My interactions with the account are public, and added that she's a strong supporter of its mission. I don't do this for money or fame, Reichik told the New York Post, which, like all other outlets interviewing her, allowed her to speak on the condition of anonymity. In February, while comparing herself to Project Veritas. Project Veritas, by the way, may be one of the worst conservative organizations you could compare yourself to. An organization literally built on lies. Like, literally built on sting operations that force people into compromising appearing positions so they can lie about them. Like, Project Veritas is ridiculous. Maybe we'll talk about them one day. James O'Keefe. I'm not some politician or blue check journalist. Damn straight. I feel like there are so many small stories that are so important that aren't getting out, and that's what I'm here for. In another anonymous interview, she claims to have left New York for somewhere in California, recently turning the account into a full-time job. For a while, she was soliciting donations through Venmo. But Libs of TikTok continues to amass followers across the internet. It has more than 65,000 followers on Instagram, nearly 10,000 on YouTube, and a robust presence on right-wing YouTube competitor Rumble. Mind you, she's getting revenue on all of these sites. Like, and with numbers trickling down from Twitter, like